The sun was burning hot over the crowded city. People were tired, traffic was loud, and no one had patience left. Ariba stood at the gas station with sweat on her forehead and anger in her eyes. Her day had gone from bad to worse. She had just lost her job that morning. Her manager told her she didn't meet expectations. She had worked there for 2 years. She gave everything she had. But now she was nothing. She hadn't even eaten since morning. Her hands were shaking slightly, but she kept them still. She just wanted to get fuel and leave. Her phone kept buzzing with messages from the hospital. Her mother had been admitted last night, a heart issue again. But now she couldn't even pay for her medicine. She opened her purse, only a few notes inside. Her heart sank deeper. She stepped toward the pump. But before she could move forward, a man in a worn gray hoodie walked ahead and started fueling his car. He hadn't been in the line. He had just arrived. Ariba's blood boiled. This was the last thing she could take. "Hey," she shouted, her voice sharp like a knife. "You cut the line, can't you see? People are waiting." The man didn't respond. He kept his head down and continued. The silence made it worse. "Are you deaf? I'm talking to you." Still, he didn't say anything. He didn't even look at her. Ariba walked up, her hands clenched. She tapped his shoulder hard. Still, no response. He turned just slightly, his face tired, eyes dull. Something snapped inside her. "How dare you ignore me like that?" she yelled, and before she could stop herself, her hand flew up. She slapped him. The sound echoed through the station. Everyone turned. Time froze. The man stood still. He touched his cheek gently. Ariba stood breathing heavily, shocked by her own action. The man looked into her eyes for the first time. Not with anger, not with fear, just sadness. "I'm sorry. You're having a bad day," he said softly. And then he whispered, "You have no idea what I'm carrying." Ariba's heart dropped. For a second, she didn't know what to say. The man turned around and walked to his car. He didn't yell. He didn't curse. He didn't hit back. He just left. The silence was louder than anything else. Ariba got back in her car, embarrassed. She didn't even want to look at the other people. Her hands trembled. Her eyes welled up. What had she done? Why did she hit a stranger? Who does that? She tried to breathe, but it felt like the air was stuck in her chest. She turned the key. Her car made a strange sound, then another, then a loud pop. Her front tire had burst. She stepped out, heart pounding, and stared at the flat tire. A few people looked at her, then looked away. No one came to help. She stood, frozen, unsure of what to do, but then she heard footsteps. She looked up. The same man in the gray hoodie was walking toward her. Her heart skipped a beat. Was he angry now? Was he going to yell? But he didn't. He crouched down near the tire. "I have a spare jack in my trunk," he said. "Give me 10 minutes. She didn't move. She couldn't speak. He got to work quietly. His hands were fast but careful. Ariba watched, guilt burning in her chest. Why was he helping her? She had hit him. He had every reason to walk away. But here he was, fixing her problem. Why? 10 minutes later, the tire was fixed. He wiped his hands on his hoodie and stood up. "You're good to go now," he said. She tried to speak, but her throat felt tight. "Thank you," she finally whispered. I didn't mean to." He nodded. "It's okay. We all break sometimes." Then, he turned and walked to his car. Ariba watched him drive away. Something inside her shifted. Who was this man? Why did he say she had no idea what he was carrying? Where was he going after that? Her mind wouldn't stop spinning. She got in her car and started driving. Her phone buzzed again. Another message from the hospital. She needed to reach there, fast. But her eyes kept drifting to the road ahead. And then, in the distance, she saw his car. The same gray color, same license plate. He was taking a turn near the old hospital street. Ariba slowed down and followed. Just for a moment. Just to see. His car stopped outside a children's hospital. He got out, holding something small, a teddy bear, worn but clean. He walked inside without looking back. Ariba parked on the other side of the street. Her curiosity was stronger than her pride. Now, she crossed the road and entered the building. The hospital smell hit her immediately. Clean, cold, and full of quiet pain. She saw the man talking to a nurse. The nurse smiled gently and pointed toward a room. He nodded and walked in. Ariba stood still, watching. Another nurse approached her. "Oh, your family?" she asked kindly. Ariba nodded without thinking. "Yes, kind of." The nurse smiled. "He's such a strong father. He hasn't missed a single day. His son's been here for 6 months. Very critical case." Ariba felt a jolt in her chest. 6 months. She looked toward the room. The man was sitting beside a hospital bed. A small boy lay there, tubes attached, eyes closed. The man placed the teddy bear beside him and kissed his forehead. Ariba's throat tightened. She turned away and walked outside. The air hit her face like a slap. She leaned against the wall and tried not to cry. She had hit that man, a father, a man who had been silently fighting for his son's life. And she had treated him like garbage. The guilt was unbearable. The next day she returned to the hospital. She brought a small lunchbox with her. She didn't know if he'd accept it, but she had to try. He was sitting in the same place, by his son's bed. She waited until the nurse left, then stepped in quietly. "I brought you something," she said softly. He turned, surprised. "It's just food." I thought maybe you haven't had time to eat. He looked at the lunchbox. Then, at her, his eyes were tired. I appreciate it, but I'm used to being invisible. Ariba felt like crying. You're not invisible, she said. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. He looked at his son again. He used to love mangoes. Now he can't even taste them. His voice cracked. Ariba sat down quietly. What's his name? Arhem, he said. He's 6. Just 6. Ariba looked at the small boy. He looked so peaceful. But she could feel the storm around him. The machines, the wires, the fear. She came again the next day, and the next. Sometimes with food, sometimes just to sit. They didn't talk much, but something was building, a quiet trust. One day, he spoke more. My wife died in this hospital, he said. Same room. 1 year ago, she had a blood infection. It spread too fast. I lost her in 2 days. Now I'm afraid I'll lose him too. Ariba couldn't breathe. This man had lost so much. And still, he helped her that day. Still, he forgave her. Why? She wanted to know everything, but she didn't ask. She just stayed. One evening, he was called to the doctor's room. He hesitated. Arham was alone. Ariba stepped forward. I'll sit with him, she said. He looked at her, unsure. Just 10 minutes, she promised. He nodded slowly and left. Ariba sat beside Arham. She held his small hand. It was cold and soft. She whispered stories to him, told him about the sun and the clouds and silly cats on the street. Suddenly, his fingers moved. His eyelids fluttered. Then he opened his eyes, slightly. Don't go, Baba, he whispered. Ariba froze. I'm here, she said softly. His eyes slowly closed again. But she sat there, heart pounding. When the man returned, she told him what happened. His eyes filled with tears. He hugged her tightly. Thank you, he said. I thought I was alone in this. You're not? Ariba whispered. Not anymore. The night grew dark, but something new had begun to glow inside both of them. Something fragile, but real. The hospital lights were always too bright, yet the corners always felt too dark. Ariba sat quietly near Arham's bed, watching his small chest rise and fall. Machines beeped softly, like a strange lullaby. She had been coming to the hospital every day now. She didn't know exactly why she kept returning, but her heart pulled her back. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was something else. But every time she saw them on Arham's father, her heart softened more. His name was Sohail. She finally asked after a week of silence. Sohail, she repeated when he said it. It suited him. Soft and quiet, like him. She began bringing small things each day. Fresh fruit, sometimes coloring books, sometimes just tea. Sohail never asked for anything. He never expected it. But every time she brought something, he looked at her like she had done something impossible. Like kindness was something he hadn't seen in years. They didn't talk much. Sohail was a quiet man, and Ariba was learning to be one too. But when they did speak, it was real. No pretending. No fake smiles, just truth. One day, she asked him, what do you do when you're not here? He looked down. I drive a delivery van at night, just to cover the hospital bills. Then I come here. In the morning, sleep doesn't happen much. Ariba's throat tightened. When do you rest? Sohail smiled sadly. Rest is for people who can afford it. I'm just trying to keep him alive. Ariba nodded slowly. She didn't want to ask more, but her heart hurt. The man she had slapped was carrying more than she could imagine. That night, she went home and cried. She hadn't told Sohail about her own life yet, about losing her job, about her mother being sick, about how empty her fridge was. She felt ashamed. She had everything compared to him, yet she had broken down. She had slapped a stranger, and now that stranger was showing her more strength than anyone ever had. The next morning, Ariba's mother called her. I'm feeling better today, she said softly. Can you come visit me this afternoon? Ariba looked at the clock. She always visited Sohail and Arham in the afternoon, but this time, she said yes. Her mother was smiling when she arrived. They sat together for an hour, talking like they hadn't in years. You've changed, her mother said. There's something in your eyes now. Peace, maybe. Ariba didn't know what to say. She smiled and nodded, but her thoughts were in the children's hospital. She reached there by evening. Sohail was pacing in the hallway. His face looked different, worried, pale. What happened? She asked quickly. They moved him to ICU, Sohail whispered. His lungs aren't responding. They said he might need to be put on a ventilator. Ariba's heart dropped. Can I see him? Sohail shook his head. They're not allowing visitors right now. He sat down on the bench like his legs gave up. Ariba sat beside him. She didn't say anything, just placed her hand over his. For a moment, he didn't move. Then he slowly turned his hand and held hers. It was the first time his hand was rough and tired, but his grip was gentle. I don't want to lose him, he said. I already lost my wife. I can't go through it again. Ariba felt tears rising, but she held them back. You won't, she whispered. He's strong. So are you. Sohail didn't reply. He just stared at the floor. That night, Ariba stayed. She brought coffee. Sohail didn't drink it. He just held the cup and stared at the ICU door. Around midnight, a nurse came. We're stabilizing him, she said softly. He's responding a little. Sohail exhaled deeply, like he'd been holding his breath for hours. Thank you, he whispered. When the nurse left, he turned to Ariba. You didn't have to stay. Ariba smiled. Slightly. I wanted to. Sohail looked at her. Really looked at her. Why? He asked. Why are you doing all this? You don't owe me anything. Ariba looked away. Yes, I do. You were the better person that day. I judged you without knowing anything, and still you helped me. Sohail said nothing for a long moment. Then he whispered, maybe because I knew that pain, the kind that makes you do things you regret, I've lived it. Ariba felt a tear slide down her cheek. The silence between them was heavy, but not uncomfortable. The next morning, Sohail's sister arrived. She lived in another city and had finally managed to get time off work. She stayed with Arham so Sohail could rest. Ariba convinced him to come outside for some fresh air. They walked quietly through the hospital garden. The flowers were blooming. Children laughed somewhere in the background. For a moment, everything felt normal. Sohail sat on a bench under a tree. I haven't laughed in 6 months, he said suddenly. Not once. Ariba sat beside him. Want to try today? Sohail raised an eyebrow. She smiled and pulled out her phone. She showed him a video of a cat chasing its own tail and falling into a bucket. He didn't laugh, but he smiled a little. Progress, Ariba said, grinning. Sohail looked at her, and for the first time, his eyes were lighter. You're strange, he said. In a good way, Ariba laughed. I'll take that as a compliment. Over the next few days, Arham improved. He opened his eyes more often. He whispered words. He smiled faintly when Sohail told him silly jokes. One afternoon, while Sohail was out for a delivery, Ariba brought Arham a small music box. When she opened it, a soft tune played. Arham's eyes lit up. He pointed to the tune and mouthed, again. She played it again and again. He giggled softly. When Sohail returned and saw his son smiling, he looked at Ariba with something more than gratitude, something deeper. That night, he walked her to the parking lot. They stood near her car, in silence. Then Sohail said, You've become important. I didn't expect it. Ariba's heart beat faster. Neither did I, she said softly. He looked down. I don't know what this is, or where it's going, but I feel it too. Ariba nodded. Me too. They didn't say more, but that night, both of them went home with something new inside them, a feeling neither of them had felt in a long time. Hope days passed. Arham got better. The doctors said he could be shifted out of ICU. Sohail brought balloons. Ariba brought cake. It wasn't a birthday, but it felt like one. Life was slowly returning. One morning, Sohail found a job opportunity, a proper one. A friend of his from years ago was starting a business and needed someone trustworthy. I want to try, he told Ariba, for Arham, for us. She nodded, smiling. Go for it, you deserve more. Sohail reached the interview early. He was wearing a shirt Ariba had ironed for him. He hadn't worn something clean and formal in months. He felt different. Ready? Confident. The interview went well. When he returned to the hospital, Arham was asleep. Ariba was sitting beside him, reading softly. Sohail stood at the door, watching them. For a moment he imagined this was his life now. Ariba, in their world, smiling, gentle, strong. Later, as they walked in the hallway, he stopped and said, You've changed everything. Ariba looked up. No, you've changed. I just helped a little. They stood there for a long time. Words weren't needed. That night, Sohail's sister offered to stay at the hospital. Take a break, she said. Go out. Breathe. Sohail looked at Ariba. Want to get coffee? She smiled. Always. They walked to a small cafe nearby. It was cozy, quiet, and smelled like cinnamon. They talked for hours. About childhood, regrets, dreams, fears, about nothing and everything. When it was time to go, they stood outside. It had started to rain. Light drops fell on their faces. Sohail looked at her. I never thought I'd smile. Again Ariba touched his hand. You have a beautiful smile. He leaned forward, gently, slowly, and for the first time, they kissed. It was soft, careful, healing. Ariba closed her eyes. The pain from that day at the gas station felt like another life now. They stood there under the rain, two broken souls holding on to something real. But just as the rain fell harder, phone rang. It was the hospital. Something in the nurse's voice made his stomach twist. They ran back, fast, breathless. When they reached, Arham was surrounded by doctors. His oxygen levels had dropped suddenly. His body was reacting to a new infection. Sohail grabbed his hand. Arham, stay with me. Ariba stood beside him, holding his shoulder. He's strong, she whispered. He'll fight. The doctors worked. Through the night, Sohail refused to leave the room. Ariba stayed with him. Morning came slowly. Arham's condition was stable but critical. He's holding on, the doctor said. But the next 24 hours are everything. Sohail didn't sleep. He prayed. He whispered stories to Arham. He played the music box. Ariba stayed close, her hand in his. At sunrise, Arham opened his eyes. Small, weak, but awake. Baba, he whispered. Sohail broke into tears. You're here, my boy, you're here. Arham smiled faintly. The nurse said he would recover, slowly, carefully, but he would live. Sohail turned to Ariba. We're going to be okay. She nodded, tears falling. Yes, "We are." But neither of them saw the figure watching from outside the room, a woman, dressed simply, her eyes filled with something unreadable. She turned and walked away silently, her face pale. She had been gone for over a year. Everyone believed she was dead, but now, she was back. The rain had stopped, but inside the hospital, the storm had just begun. Sohail stood next to Arham's bed, his heart finally steady after a long, terrifying night. Ariba sat on the other side, brushing Arham's hair gently, whispering soft words to keep him calm. But none of them knew that someone had seen everything from the hallway. That someone was now sitting quietly in the hospital garden, drenched from the rain, her face pale and her heart pounding. Her name was Sana. She was Sohail's wife, the woman everyone believed had died. Sana hadn't died. She had disappeared. A terrible car accident had left her unconscious for months. When she woke up, she didn't remember her name, her family, or her past. The people who found her thought she was a stranger with no memory. For a long time, she lived in a small town under a new name. But a week ago, her memory had started to return, slowly, painfully. Faces, names, a little boy's laugh, her husband's voice. One night, everything came back. She remembered who she was. She remembered Aram. She remembered Sohail. So she came back, but nothing could have prepared her for what she saw. Her husband, the man who once cried every time she was sick, was now standing beside another woman. And that woman was holding his hand. Sana didn't understand. She wanted to run inside, to scream, to ask questions. But something held her back. Fear, pain, confusion. She walked away quietly, leaving only wet footprints behind. Back inside the hospital, Sohail told Ariba, "I want to move forward. For real. I want Arham to have a peaceful life. I want us to have one too." Ariba smiled softly, hiding her nervous heart. She felt the same. But something in her gut felt uneasy, like something was about to change. The next day, a letter arrived for Sohail at the hospital reception. It had no sender, just his name on the front. He opened it slowly. Inside was a single piece of paper. The handwriting was familiar. "I saw you. I saw everything. I'm back. Sana." The paper slipped from his hands. His legs almost gave out. He leaned against the wall, gasping. Ariba ran to him. "What happened?" He handed her the note. Her face turned white as she read it. "Sana, but she..." Sohail shook his head. "No, she was never found. We searched, but there was no body, no trace. I assumed the worst. I mourned her for months." He looked up. "She's alive. She saw us." Ariba's voice was quiet. "What does this mean for us?" Sohail didn't answer. He didn't know. That night, he couldn't sleep. He sat beside Arham, watching him breathe, holding his little hand. He remembered Sana's laugh, her voice, her strength. She was the love of his life. But life had moved him in ways he couldn't explain. Ariba had entered like a storm, unexpected but healing. He cared for her deeply. Maybe he even loved her. But now Sana was back. The next day, a nurse handed Sohail another note. "Meet me at the garden. Alone." He went. Sana was sitting under a tree, the same tree he and Ariba had sat beneath just days ago. Her face was tired, older, but still hers. He couldn't believe his eyes. "Sana," he whispered. She looked up, her eyes filled with tears. "You're real," he said. "I thought you were gone." She stood up, slowly, unsure. "I thought I was too. I lost everything, Sohail. My memory, my identity. I was someone else for a long time. I couldn't find my way back." Sohail's heart twisted. "Why didn't you call when you remembered?" Sana looked away. "Because I saw you first. I saw you with her, holding her hand, smiling. You moved on." Sohail stepped closer. "I didn't move on. I broke. I shattered. Ariba helped me survive. She didn't replace you." "No one could." Sana nodded slowly. "But she healed you, didn't she?" He didn't reply. That silence was the answer. Sana sat back down. "I don't know what to do. You're his father? I'm his mother. But he thinks I'm gone." Sohail sat beside her. "We take it one step at a time. He needs to know you're alive. That's where we start." Sana looked down, and Ariba. Sohail sighed. "I don't know yet." That evening, he told Ariba everything. Every word, every feeling. Ariba listened quietly. Her face was unreadable. When he finished, she said only one thing: "I understand." Sohail reached out for her hand, but she stepped back. "I need time," she whispered, "and space. For now." She left the hospital that night. She didn't say goodbye to Arham. She knew she couldn't handle his smile. Sana met Arham the next morning. He stared at her for a long time. Then he whispered, "Mama?" She nodded, tears falling. "My baby. My strong boy." They hugged and everyone in the room cried. For days, things felt quiet. Peaceful, almost. Sana stayed at the hospital. Sohail stayed close. But something was missing. Ariba. Arham noticed first. "Where's Auntie Ariba?" he asked. Sohail smiled sadly. "She had to go somewhere. Will she come back?" "I hope so," Sohail said softly. 1 week later, a doctor called Sohail. He wanted to talk privately. Sohail sat in the office, nervous. The doctor's face was serious. "It's about Arham," he began. "His condition is improving, yes. But there's something we didn't tell you earlier." Sohail leaned in. "What is it?" The doctor handed him a report. Arham's immune system is extremely weak. The recent infection nearly took him. If he catches something again, we might not be able to save him. Sohail's heart dropped. What can we do? The doctor sighed. We need a rare blood match. Possibly a stem cell donation. From a family member. Sana was tested. She wasn't a match. Sohail wasn't either. We're searching the database. But it's urgent. We may have to look for extended family or someone else close. Sohail felt dizzy. There was one person. He hadn't thought of Ariba. She wasn't family. But maybe, just maybe, that night, he called her. She didn't pick up. He messaged. I know you're hurt, but it's about Arham. Please, call me. She replied after 2 hours. What's wrong? He told her everything. She didn't hesitate. I'll come first thing tomorrow, she wrote. Next morning, Ariba arrived. She looked tired, but determined. She gave her sample. Hours later, the results came. She was a match. The only one. Sohail cried. Thank you, he whispered. Ariba nodded. I'm doing it for him, not for us. I know, Sohail said. Still, thank you. Sana approached Ariba later. Thank you for saving my son, she said quietly. Ariba smiled faintly. He's not just your son anymore. He's part of me too. That night, the procedure was done. Arham responded well. His color returned. His energy improved. Sana sat beside him. So did Sohail. Ariba watched from the hallway. She didn't want to intrude. But Arham saw her. He called out, Auntie, come, please. She walked in. His small hands reached out. The three of them sat together. Sana looked at Ariba. He loves you. Ariba nodded. I love him too. Sana whispered. So do I. That's our one thing in common. Sohail looked at both women. His eyes filled with emotion. We all love him. That's what matters. Sana stood up. I'm going back to the recovery center tomorrow. I still need treatment. Time, space? Sohail nodded. Take all the time you need. She looked at Ariba again. Whatever happens, thank you. Truly. Ariba said nothing, but her eyes spoke volumes. When Sana left, Sohail turned to Ariba. And now? He asked. What about us? Ariba looked at him. I don't know yet, but I'm here. I'll be here for him, and maybe, for you. He smiled, hopeful. They didn't rush. They didn't promise. But something new had begun again. The past had returned, but the future still waited. And as Arham laughed that evening, the three of them knew this story was far from over. It had been 2 weeks since Sana left for the recovery center. The hospital halls felt calmer now. Arham's laughter had returned. His strength was improving day by day. Ariba still visited daily. She brought him puzzles, snacks, and stories. Sometimes, she stayed late into the evening, and sometimes Sohail would walk her to her car quietly, not saying much but thinking everything. One afternoon while Arham napped, Sohail and Ariba sat at the hospital cafe. The silence between them wasn't awkward, it was full of unspoken understanding. After a long sip of tea, Sohail said, I never imagined life would get this complicated. Ariba looked at her hands. None of us did, but we're still here, still fighting. Sohail nodded. You saved his life, Ariba. I'll never forget that, Ariba's eyes softened. I didn't do it for gratitude. I did it because he's part of me now, and maybe, you are too. Sohail smiled faintly, but there was still uncertainty in the air. Just then, a nurse rushed in with a file. Sohail, sir, this just came in. It's important. He opened it. His eyes scanned the page. They widened. What is it? Ariba asked. Sohail handed her the paper. It was from the police. They had located a man who claimed to know Sana during her months of memory loss. He said he had been helping her on, protecting her. His name was Abbas. Sohail. Read the letter again. Abbas had found Sana unconscious after the accident. He said she was in danger. From whom? The report didn't say. But there were signs. Someone had been chasing her. Someone didn't want her to be found. Abbas kept her in hiding until she could remember who she was. Sohail's hands clenched the file. Who would chase Sana? She had no enemies. She was kind, careful, quiet. Ariba leaned closer. Maybe it's not about her. Maybe it's about you. Sohail frowned. What do you mean? She whispered. You told me your brother once owed money to bad people. That after his death, you were threatened. Sohail's face turned pale. You think this is connected? Maybe, or maybe someone thought she knew something she shouldn't have. Sohail stood up. I need answers. I need to meet this Abbas. The next morning, Sohail traveled to the address mentioned in the report. Ariba stayed behind with Arham. She was nervous, but tried not to show it. Abbas lived in a small house outside the city. Sohail knocked on the door. A tall, quiet man opened it. His eyes were sharp, but tired. You must be Sohail, he said. Yes, and you're Abbas. The man nodded. Come in. Sohail entered. The house was simple, clean, no photos, no decorations. Abbas poured 2 glasses of water. She remembered everything one night, he said, without waiting. And when she did, she cried for hours. I knew then it was time to let her go. Soha sat down. Why did you hide her in the first place? Abbas looked at him. Because someone wanted her gone. The night I found her, she had a gash on her head. Her car was off the road. She was mumbling. She said someone was following her, trying to silence her. Sohail leaned forward. Abbas shrugged. She never remembered that part, but I didn't take chances. I kept her hidden. I took care of her. And when she got better, I helped her find you. Sohail's voice cracked. Thank you, Abbas nodded. I didn't do it for thanks. I did it because she deserved peace. But now that she's back, peace won't come easy. Sohail stood. If someone wanted her gone, maybe they'll come back. Abbas's eyes turned cold. Then you need to be ready. Sohail returned to the hospital late that night. Ariba was waiting. He told her everything. She stayed silent for a while. Then she said, we need to protect Arham. Sohail nodded. First thing in the morning, I'm moving him to a private room. No visitors without my permission. And we'll rotate watching over him. Ariba agreed. The next day, Arham was moved. But he sensed something. Why is everyone acting so serious? He asked. Sohail smiled. We just want you safe, buddy. That's all. But Arham was smart. He watched everything. And that night, he asked Ariba, are you scared? She didn't lie. A little, but I'm also brave. Like you, Arham smiled. Then I'll be brave too. Meanwhile, in the recovery center, Sana was struggling. Her memory returned, but with it came panic, guilt, and fear. She had nightmares of shadows following her. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the road, the accident, the pain. A nurse noticed her distress. Sana, do you want to talk to someone? Sana shook her head. I want to talk to Sohail. The nurse made the call. Sohail came that afternoon. He sat beside her, holding her cold hand. What's haunting you? He asked gently. Sana looked at the window. The accident? It wasn't an accident. Sohail froze. What? Someone pushed me off the road. Someone was following me. I tried to escape. I saw a face. But it was dark. I hit the tree. I blacked out. Sohail's heart raced. Do you remember anything else? A car? A tattoo? On the driver's arm, a red dragon. Sohail stood. That's it. That's the lead we needed. He called Abbas immediately. Abbas knew the symbol. That tattoo belonged to a gang. One Sohail's late brother had crossed years ago. They were still active, still dangerous. And if Sana had seen them during some deal, they would have wanted her silenced, Abbas said. I'll look into it. Keep your family close. That night, Sohail called Ariba. She was reading to Arham. After the call, she looked outside. A black car had been parked across the street for over an hour. She called Sohail again. I think someone's watching. Sohail rushed to the hospital. By the time he arrived, the car was gone, but the fear remained. We need to move him again, Ariba said. Somewhere safe. Sohail agreed. The next day, Abbas arranged a secure location, a private medical facility. In a quiet town, only a few trusted people knew the address. They moved Arham at night. Ariba, Sohail, and a trusted nurse accompanied him. Arham was sleepy, but calm. Where are we going? He asked. Somewhere safe, like a secret mission. Arham smiled. I like missions. At the new facility, things were quieter. Arham rested. Ariba and Sohail took turns staying awake. They couldn't take chances. One morning, the nurse came rushing in. Someone tried to access the hospital record system, she said. They were looking for Arham. Sohail's blood ran cold. Who we don't know, but they were using stolen credentials. Sohail called. Abbas, find them. Abbas was already tracking. Days passed. Abbas found a man with a red dragon tattoo. He had been asking questions. Following cars, Abbas followed him. One night, the man led him to a warehouse. Abbas called Sohail. I need backup. Sohail called the police. He and Abbas waited. Inside the warehouse, they found documents, photos, Sana, Arham, even Ariba. Someone had been watching for weeks. The police arrested 2 men, gang members. Sohail's head spun. How did this even start? Abbas explained. Your brother took something from them. Money? Information. He died before he could return it. They assumed you had it. When Sana saw one of their meetings, they panicked and went after her. Sana survived, but they didn't stop watching. They watched you. They followed Ariba. They even tried to use the hospital systems. Sohail felt sick. Is it over? Abbas wasn't sure, but the worst is behind us. Go home. Be with your son. Back at the facility, Arham was playing cards with Ariba. When he saw his father walk in, he smiled. You look tired. Baba. Sohail laughed. I've never been happier to hear you say that. Sana came to visit 2 days later. Her hands were steadier. Her smile was real. When she hugged Arham, it wasn't out of fear. It was out of love, pure and strong. She looked at Arba. Thank you for protecting him. Arba nodded. I'll always protect him. Sana looked at Sohail. What now? Sohail looked at both women. Now, we breathe, and tomorrow, we plan. But that night, as the stars shone above the quiet town, Arham whispered something to Ariba. I had a dream, you, me, Baba, and Mama. We were all at the beach, laughing. Ariba smiled. That sounds like a good dream. Do you think it can come true? Arham asked. She looked out the window. Maybe, if we're brave enough. And just like that, a new chapter waited to begin. The morning sun lit the quiet hospital room. Arham was sleeping peacefully, and Ariba sat beside him, sipping warm tea. The events of the past few weeks still played in her mind. Sana's return. The threats, the gang, the move to this safe town. Everything had changed, yet something was finally starting to feel normal again. Sohail walked in with a box in his hands. Ariba looked up. What's that? Sohal smiled. I bought some board games. Thought we could distract Arham today. Ariba smiled softly. That's a good idea. Arham woke up not long after. When he saw the games, he clapped his hands. Yes, I want to play the pirate one first. Hours passed, laughter filling the room. Even the nurse paused outside the door, smiling at the sound of joy. But the calm didn't last long. That evening, Sohal received a phone call from an unknown number. His face turned pale. He ended the call and turned to Ariba. We need to talk. Outside the room, he whispered. That call was a warning. The gang might still be watching us. I thought they were caught. Sohail shook his head. Only 2 of them. The leader, the one truly dangerous, is still out there. He called to let me know he knows where we are. Ariba felt her knees weaken. What now? Sohail looked torn. I think we need to disappear completely. For a while, change everything. Names, location, even phones. Ariba blinked. And Arham, he's the priority. He comes with us. But what about Sana? Sohail paused. She deserves to know. But I don't want her in danger again. They sat quietly for a moment. Then Ariba said, I'll talk to her. If we all go together, maybe we'll be safer. That night they met Sana at a local cafe under the protection of Abbas, who sat at a nearby table. Sana listened carefully as Sohail explained the situation. She was quiet for a long time. Then she nodded. I'm in. For Arham's sake. Wherever we go, I'll follow. Abbas leaned in. I can help you vanish. I've done it before. You'll need new identities. No phones. No internet. It won't be forever, but it will be for a while. Ariba looked at Sohail. Are we really doing this? Sohail looked at Arham's photo in his wallet. We have 2. Abbas made quick arrangements. Within 3 days, they were packed, moved, and settled. In a quiet mountain village under different names, Ariba became Alina, Sohail became Shahid. Sana was now Sarah Arham. Still too young to understand fully, just thought it was another adventure. The house they moved into was small but cozy. There was a garden outside, a fireplace, silence all around. Ariba started homeschooling Arham. Sana helped in the kitchen. Sohail worked remotely, using a secure line Abbas had provided. Weeks passed. Slowly, they began to breathe again. Arham flourished. He ran through the trees, fed the chickens, and learned to ride a bike. One evening, he told Ariba, I like this place. I feel safe here. Ariba smiled. Me too, my little lion. But even safety felt temporary. Late one night, while Sohail was taking out the trash, he noticed tire tracks at the edge of the property. He followed them with a flashlight. They stopped behind a tree. There, he found an old cigarette butt still warm. He returned inside, tense. Someone was here, he told Ariba. She held Arham tighter that night. Sohail called Abbas the next morning. Abbas promised to look into it. A few days later, he confirmed. The gang leader was still hunting them. He had a network. Contacts in different towns. Sohail felt a rage he hadn't known before. They'll never stop, will they? Abbas was quiet. Not until he's behind bars or gone. Ariba, overhearing, finally spoke up. Then we stop running. We fight? Sohail looked at her. How? Ariba said, let's give them something they want. Set a trap. Abbas raised an eyebrow. That's risky. It could work, but you'd have to be bait. Sohail agreed. Let's end this. Over the next week, they planned. Abbas spread rumors that Sohail had returned to the city alone. He arranged for Sohail to stay at an apartment rigged with security, cameras, alarms, silent alert buttons. Sohail waited. 2 nights passed. Then, on the 3rd night, he heard the back window open. He pressed the alert button. Within seconds, Abbas and the police were on their way. But Sohail wasn't alone. The gang leader stepped into the room, tall, scarred, furious. You cost me everything, he hissed. Your brother, your family, your woman. It's all your fault. Sohail stayed calm. I protected what matters. That's something you'll never understand. The man lunged, but Sohail dodged. They struggled, knocking over a lamp. Just as the man pulled a knife, the door burst open. Abbas tackled him. Police flooded the room. The leader was arrested. It was over. The news traveled fast. Sana cried when she heard. Ariba hugged Arham. Sohail returned home with bruises but peace in his eyes. We're free now, he whispered. Free. But even in freedom, choices had to be made. Do we return to our old lives or stay hidden? They voted. Ariba wanted Arham to grow without fear. Sana wanted to find work again. Sohail wanted peace. They chose to stay in the village for a while longer. One evening, Ariba sat with Su. Outside, the stars above them blinked softly. Sohail looked at her. You saved my son. You saved me. Ariba smiled. And you gave me something to live for. Sohail reached for her hand. Maybe. After everything, we're the family we never planned but always needed. Ariba's eyes glistened. Maybe we are. Inside, Arham slept soundly, his arms around a stuffed lion. The nightmare was over. A new dream had begun. The sun peeked through the clouds as the village woke slowly. Birds chirped, dew sparkled on the grass, and for once, peace truly felt real. Ariba poured warm milk into a mug. her eyes drifting to Arham, who sat cross-legged on the carpet, coloring a picture of their new home. Sohail was in the garden, fixing the fence with quiet focus. Sana hummed softly in the kitchen, baking bread. It was a new kind of normal. But in the silence, Ariba began to feel something else: uncertainty. Now that the danger was over, what came next? Who were they, really, in this new life? That evening, as they sat by the fireplace, Sohail said something unexpected. I got a letter. Ariba looked up from Huabas. He says the trial is starting. They want me to testify. Ariba's heart skipped. That's risky. Sohail nodded. I know. But if I don't speak, he could walk free. Sana entered the room, wiping her hands. I'll go with you, she said. It's time we close this chapter for good. They discussed the plan late into the night. Abbas arranged everything: disguises, secure transport, hidden entry to the courtroom. The next week, Sohail and Sana left the village, leaving Ariba and Arham behind. As they drove away, Arham asked quietly, will Baba come back? Ariba hugged him. Of course. My lion. He always comes back. The trial was intense. The gang leader, now behind thick glass, stared coldly at Sohail as he spoke. Sohail told the court everything: the threats, the kidnapping, the violence, the pain. His voice shook at times, but he didn't stop. Sana spoke to. She confessed her mistakes, her regrets, and how she finally found courage to protect Arham. The judge listened carefully. After 3 days of testimony, the verdict came. Guilty. The gang leader was sentenced to life in prison. Outside the courtroom, Abbas clapped Sohail on the back. You did it. It's over now, Sana whispered. I feel like I can breathe again. They returned to the village under moonlight. When Sohail stepped into the house, Arham ran into his arms. You're home? I knew you'd come back. Ariba watched from the doorway, tears in her eyes. For the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to feel joy. But the journey wasn't over. In the weeks that followed, life began to shift again. Sohail started writing a book about everything they'd lived through. Ariba opened a small homeschool for village children. Sana began working at a nearby health clinic. One day, Arham found an old photograph in a drawer. It was of Ari for everything. He brought it to her. Mama, were you always so brave? Ariba knelt beside him. I wasn't, but life made me strong. You helped too, Arham smiled. I'm gonna be strong like you one day. Ariba kissed his forehead. You already are. That evening, Sohail and Ariba sat by the fireplace. The light flickered softly between them. Sohail said, I've been thinking. Ariba raised an eyebrow. About what? About us. You, me, Arham. We've survived something most people never could. We've become something real. Ariba looked down at her hands. I was afraid to name it, afraid to lose it. Sohail gently reached for her hand. I think we're a family, whether we planned it or not. Ariba nodded slowly. A family born from chaos. But one I wouldn't trade. They sat in silence for a while. Then Sohail asked, will you marry me? Not out of duty, but out of choice. Ariba didn't answer right away. Her heart raced. Her eyes filled, and she whispered, yes. Not because we have to, but because I want to. They held each other tightly. Outside, the wind danced through the trees. The next morning, they told Arham. He jumped up and down. Does that mean I get to wear a bow tie? Ariba laughed. Yes, my lion, and cake. Lots of cake. Sana smiled when she heard the news. It's strange, she said. I caused so much pain, but somehow, this became something good. Ariba touched her hand. You changed. You protected him. That's what matters. Sana looked out the window. Do you think I'll find love again? Ariba shrugged. Maybe, if you stop looking in the wrong places. Sana chuckled. That's fair. The village came together to celebrate. It was a small wedding, but beautiful. Arham walked Ariba down the path, his tiny hand in hers. Sohail stood under the tree where they first planted seeds in the garden, waiting with tears in his eyes. Vows were spoken, promises made, and for the first time in forever, their hearts felt safe. That night, as they danced under the stars, Sohail whispered, I once thought my life ended when I lost my son, but it only changed paths. Ariba nodded. I thought I was invisible. Now I know I matter. They held each other as music played. Sana danced with local villagers. Arham fell asleep on the grass, tired but smiling. The story that began with a slap had led to a place of peace. But one thing remained. Ariba sat alone that night with her journal. She opened a blank page and wrote, I want to tell this story. Not just for me. For every woman who feels unheard. For every man who's judged before he speaks. For every child who needs protection. I want them to know they are not alone. She closed the journal with a soft smile. Tomorrow, she would begin. Not a story of violence, but of survival. Not of shame, but of strength. Not of loss, but of love. A new chapter had begun. The village was glowing under the soft light of spring. Trees had begun to bloom, children ran freely, laughter filled the air, and Ariba stood at the window of her small schoolhouse, watching Arham help another boy tie his shoelaces. She smiled. In his eyes, she saw not just innocence, but the strength of everything they'd been through together. Since the wedding, life had fallen into a rhythm that felt permanent. Sohail wrote daily, pouring his story into chapters of truth and pain and hope. Sana walked every morning to the clinic, her steps lighter now, her heart freer. And Ariba taught children who had never known her past, only her calm voice and warm smile. But one morning, a letter arrived. It wasn't from Abus or the court, had no sender at all. It was simply addressed to the woman who changed everything. Ariba read it slowly, her hands trembling. The letter was from a woman named Nargis who said she had been in an abusive marriage for 12 years. One day, while watching a video someone shared on social media, she saw Ariba's story. The way Ariba had stood up, the way she had rebuilt her life, the way she had protected a child who wasn't her own. It gave Nargis the courage to walk away. Ariba's legs felt weak as she read the final line. You saved my life without ever meeting me. She folded the letter and sat down. Quietly, Sohail came in minutes later. He could tell something had changed. Are you okay? She nodded. But something inside me just opened. I thought we were hiding from the world. But the world found us anyway. And maybe now it's time we stop hiding. Sohail listened carefully. What do you want to do? I want to speak. Publicly. Not with fear, but with purpose. Sohail looked at her and smiled. Then we'll do it together. Ariba reached out to Abbas through secure channels. He arranged for a private media team to visit the village discreetly. A documentary, short and simple, about survival and hope. Ariba prepared her words for weeks. Every sentence mattered. When the cameras came, she sat under the tree outside her house and spoke. She talked about the slap, the man she misunderstood, the moment she found a child in danger, the choices that followed, the price she paid, the courage she found. Sohail spoke to, not as a victim, but as someone who chose to forgive. Sana also sat for the interview. She spoke of mistakes, regret, and redemption. The video went online quietly at first, but within days, it spread like wildfire. Comments flooded in. People from across the country, women, men, teenagers shared how the story made them cry, gave them strength, helped them open up. Some revealed their own trauma for the first time. One woman said, "This story gave me the courage to leave the man who was hurting me." A man wrote, "I was judged all my life for my tattoos. For the first time, I feel seen." Ariba read every comment with trembling hands. She cried. She smiled. She felt her heart stretch in ways she didn't know were possible. Sohail received an invitation from a publisher. They wanted to turn his writing into a real book. Sana was offered a job at a women's shelter in the city, using her past to help others. Their small family, once broken and afraid, was now becoming a light for others. One day, Arham asked, "Mama, why are people calling you brave now?" Ariba bent down and hugged him. Because sometimes, when you face something terrible, and still choose to love you, become someone stronger. Arham smiled. Then I want to be brave too. You already are, she whispered. The village was no longer just a hiding place, it was home. But one day Abbas called. He sounded hesitant. Ariba, Sohail, there's something you need to know. There's a journalist. He's looking into your story. Not the one you told, but the one behind it. Sohail frowned. What do you mean? Abbas hesitated. He's trying to find the original. Court records, photos, your real names. If he connects the dots, your quiet life might not stay quiet. Sohail thanked Abbas and hung up. Ariba stood in the doorway. It's happening, isn't it? Sohail nodded. Do you regret speaking out? She shook her head. Never. Then we face it. Together that night, they sat as a family and talked. Even Arham was included. They explained the risks, what might happen if the past came back too publicly. But in the end, Ariba said, we've run for too long. Maybe now we stand still and let the world adjust to us. Sohail smiled. Then we do it with pride. The next day, the journalist reached out directly. He wanted to meet, not for scandal, but for truth. He promised to tell the story respectfully. Ariba agreed. When they met, she wore a plain white dress. No makeup, just honesty. The journalist was young, but his eyes were kind. He asked questions gently. He didn't dig for pain. He listened. At the end, he said, you don't just have a story, you are a symbol. The article came out a week later. From slap to strength, the woman who sparked a movement, it told everything truthfully, but not with shame, with respect, with grace, with power. The response was overwhelming. Invitations poured in, conferences, panels, support centers. Ariba was no longer invisible. Sohail stood by her side at every step. Sana returned to the city, working at the shelter, writing her own book about second chances. Arham grew confident, bold, kind. One afternoon, Ariba stood in a room filled with hundreds of people. She held a microphone, but her hands didn't shake. She said, I once slapped a stranger because I was angry at the world. That slap changed my life. But it wasn't my mistake that shaped me. It was what I did after. I chose to protect, to love, to forgive. That's what healed me. She stepped back, the room silent then full of applause. Outside the hall, a woman stopped her. She looked nervous. I don't want to bother you. I just wanted to say, your story saved my daughter. She was silent for years. After watching your video, she finally told me what happened to her. We're getting help now. Ariba hugged her without a word. That night, she and Sohail walked quietly through the city. Do you miss the village? He asked. Sometimes, she said. But I think it was never about the place. It was about who we became. There, he smiled. So what now? We build, we give back, we stay brave. Arham ran ahead of him, chasing light, and they followed, step by step, into the future. The sun was setting over the city skyline, painting the tall buildings with gold and orange light. Ariba stood on the balcony of the hotel room, holding a cup of tea. Below, cars moved like slow ants, and people walked with purpose. It was a different world than the quiet village she had grown used to, but something inside her felt calm. Behind her, Sohail worked on his book edits. Arham sat on the floor, building a castle out of blocks, occasionally asking if he could add a dragon. On top, they were in the city for 1 week to attend a national women's conference where Ariba had been invited as a guest speaker. She had spoken before, but this one felt different. Bigger, heavier, more public. She wasn't nervous anymore, but she was thoughtful. Each time she spoke, her words carried the weight of not just her story, but thousands of others who couldn't speak it. That night, after Arham fell asleep, Ariba sat beside Sohail and asked quietly, "Do you ever miss the man you were before all of this?" Sohail paused, looked at her, and shook his head. That man was angry, broken, afraid to feel anything. "I miss my son, every single day. But I don't miss the man I was. You brought me back." Ariba reached for his hand. "And you helped me find myself." They sat like that for a while, fingers intertwined, not needing more words. The next day, the conference hall buzzed with energy. Women of all ages filled the chairs, and cameras lined the back of the room. When Ariba stepped onto the stage, the room hushed. She wore a soft blue shawl, her voice steady as she began. "I'm not here as a victim," she said. "I'm here as someone who made a mistake, but chose to make it right." She told her story again, but this time, she added something new. "I was angry when I slapped that man, not just at him, but at the life I had been living. I was hurting, and I thought hurting someone else would ease my pain, but then I saw a little boy. His eyes changed everything. That boy showed me that protecting someone is more powerful than punishing someone." The crowd was silent. Some wiped tears, some nodded slowly. Ariba continued. "We live in a world where people are quick to judge, quick to cancel, quick to turn away. But I want to ask you something. What if we chose to see beyond the surface? What if we asked, what happened to you, instead of what's wrong with you?" She paused, her voice softening. "I saw a man with tattoos and thought he was dangerous. But he was a father. Mourning his son. I saw a woman being silent and thought she was weak, but she had survived years of fear. People aren't always what they seem, and that's why we must listen, because when we truly listen, healing begins." The applause was thunderous. Ariba stepped back, eyes glistening. She felt proud not of the attention, but of the connection. After the event, a young woman named Huda approached her. She looked nervous but determined. "I've been quiet for years," she said, "but your story gave me courage. I want to protect others." Ariba smiled. "Then speak, and know that I'm standing with you." That evening, back at the hotel, Sohail hugged her tightly. "You were incredible," he said. Ariba smiled. "I was just honest." That night, Ariba received a message on her phone. Unknown number. The message read, "I know who you are. I know what you did, and not everyone believes you're a hero." Ariba's chest tightened. She showed it to Sohail, who read it calmly, but firmly. "Someone's trying to shake you. We expected this. Are you okay?" Ariba nodded slowly. "I'm not afraid, but I won't let this go." Abbas was contacted immediately. He traced the message back to a burner phone. No exact name, but the tone was familiar. It wasn't just criticism. It was personal. Santa called. "Late that night. I saw the article. I saw the speech. I'm proud of you, but be careful. Not everyone wants your light to shine." Ariba thanked her and said, "I'm not hiding anymore. If someone wants to come after me, they'll have to do it in the open." A few days later, while walking through a park with Arham, a man approached, mid-40s, sharp features, clean clothes, but something cold in his eyes. "You're Ariba, right?" She nodded, cautiously pulling Arham close. The man said, "My brother was in that gang, the one you testified against. He's in prison now because of you." Ariba didn't flinch. "He's in prison because of what he did, not because of me." The man stepped forward, voice low. "You ruined a family." Ariba looked him in the eye. So did he. The man paused, staring, then turned and walked away. Arham asked, "Mama, who was that?" "Just someone who's still hurting, but we're safe. My lion." She knelt down, brushing hair from his forehead. "Always stay close to people who choose to protect, not punish." Arham nodded, hugging her. A few weeks later, Sohail's book was published, titled The Fire and the Garden. It told the full story from the darkest pain to the quiet healing. It became a bestseller within 2 weeks. People messaged from all over the world. One man wrote, "I read this in one sitting. I haven't cried in 15 years. Thank you." Another said, "Your story saved my marriage." Sohail held the book in his hands one night and said, "I wrote this for my son, but maybe it was meant for more." Arham said, "Will I write a book one day too?" Ariba laughed. "Maybe, or maybe you'll do something even braver." "What's braver than writing a book?" "Loving people when it's hard. When it hurts, when they don't love you back. That's the bravest thing of all." Time passed. The fear faded. The threats stopped. Ariba's video reached millions. A movement began, a national support network for victims of abuse. Women started calling it the silent stand. Inspired by Ariba's line, "I stood still, and the world had to adjust." In every city, centers opened with that quote on the wall. Ariba and Sohail visited the first one together. As they entered, people clapped, cried, cheered. One girl, only 10 years old, ran up to Ariba with a letter. "You remind me of my mom," it said. She was scared too, but now we're okay. Thank you for being brave first. Ariba knelt down and hugged her. She didn't need fame. This was her reward. That night, Ariba stared at the stars from the rooftop of the center. Sohail joined her, wrapping a shawl around her shoulders. "Do you ever wonder why this all happened?" he asked. Ariba nodded. "Every day. But maybe pain was never the end. Maybe it was the doorway, and we just had to keep walking." Sohail smiled. "Then let's keep walking, together." The weather was beginning to shift. The breeze in the village was cooler now, the trees a little more golden, as if the world was gently preparing for change. Ariba stood outside the house, watching Arham chase falling leaves in the yard, his laughter echoing like music through the garden. Sohail was repairing the gate again. It creaked when the wind blew, and though no one complained, Sohail always wanted things in order. They had found a rhythm now, a life that felt earned. The past didn't haunt them anymore, it just lived quietly behind them, like an old scar. But one phone call was all it took to stir the dust again. The call came from Abbas. His voice was calm but serious. "Ariba, I need you and Sohail to come to the city. Something's come up." "What happened?" she asked. "There's been a break in the prison. Someone helped one of the inmates escape. It's not confirmed yet, but I believe it might be someone connected to the old gang." Sohail took the phone from Ariba. "Who escaped?" Abbas paused. "Not the leader, but someone from the same group, a man who held Ariba and Arham hostage once." Sohail clenched his jaw. "Is she in danger?" Abbas sighed. "We don't know yet, but I want you here, in a safe place, until we figure it out." Ariba felt her chest tighten. She looked over at Arham, still laughing, completely unaware of the shadow that might be returning. That evening, they packed quietly. Arham sensed the tension, and asked, "Are we going on a trip again?" Ariba smiled, forcing calm. "Just a short one, my lion, like an adventure." They left at dawn. The drive to the city was silent. Sohail's hands gripped the wheel tighter than usual. Ariba stared out the window, watching trees blur past, wondering how many times one life could be pulled backward, before it broke completely. Abbas met them at a safe apartment. It was quiet and heavily guarded. He briefed them. The man's name was Zubair. He disappeared after the break. "We've tracked some movement. It seems like he might be trying to find you." "Why?" Sohail asked. "Revenge, maybe, but maybe something else. We don't know yet. Just stay low for now." That night, Ariba couldn't sleep. She stared at the ceiling, memories crawling up from the corners of her mind. Zubair had held a knife to her throat once. She had looked him in the eyes and begged him to let Arham go. He had laughed, a cold, empty laugh. And now he might be out there again. The next day, Abbas returned with new information. "We intercepted a message. Zubair's trying to prove something to the rest of the group. He wants to find Arham. Take him. Use him to silence you both." Ariba felt like the ground had been pulled from beneath her. Sohail stood up sharply. "We're leaving. Somewhere far." Abbas shook his head. "You leave. He'll find you. But if we lure him in, we can end this. For good." Ariba's voice was low. "You want to use us as bait?" Abbas didn't blink. "I want to stop him before he hurts anyone else. But I won't do it without your permission." Sohail looked at Ariba. She met his eyes. And after a long silence, she nodded. "We do this, but we do it smart." The plan was set. Ariba would attend a small charity event at a public park, an event that Zubair could easily hear about through. The network security would be placed all around. Undercover, Sohail would be nearby, watching everything. Arham would stay hidden with Abbas's team. The day arrived. Ariba wore a simple dress.com on the outside, but every step felt like walking through fog. The event began. She spoke briefly on stage. Cameras clicked. Applause followed. Then she stepped down, blending into the crowd. Abbas whispered in her ear. "He's here, gray hoodie, near the food stall." Sohail's voice crackled through the cum. "I see him. He's watching her, not moving yet." Ariba felt her heart pounding in her throat. She walked slowly, pretending to greet people, forcing a smile. Suddenly a child screamed in the distance. Everyone turned. That's when Zubair moved. He didn't run. He walked fast, cutting through the crowd toward her. Sohail shouted. Abbas's men closed in, but Zubair was fast. Too fast. He grabbed Ariba's wrist, pulling her behind a tree. "Nobody move or she dies." He yelled. A knife gleamed in his hand. Ariba gasped, trying to break free. Her eyes locked with Sohail's across the crowd. Sohail froze. He couldn't shoot. Too many people. Abbas called for backup. Ariba spoke softly. "Zubair, you don't want this. Let's talk." His eyes were wild. "You think you're a hero now? You destroyed everything. My brother died in that prison because of you," Ariba whispered. "I'm sorry for your pain, but hurting me won't bring him back." He pressed the knife closer. "You think you're better than us, but you're not. Sohail stepped closer. Let her go, I beg you. Zubair looked at Sohail. You're the one who hit me, who humiliated me. You both took everything. Ariba could feel his hand shaking, not with strength but fear. She spoke, again, gently. You're still scared, just like I was once. This doesn't have to end badly. Zubair's grip loosened. For a second, that's when Abbas's men tackled him. The knife fell. Ariba was pulled away, breathless, shaking, safe. Zubair screamed as he was dragged off. Abbas looked at her. Are you hurt? Ariba shook her head. Just tired. Sohail wrapped her in his arms. You were incredible. I was terrified. I know, she said, her voice muffled. But it's over. Really over. They returned home the next day. The village greeted them like heroes. Sana ran to them, hugging Arham tight. I watched everything, she said. You're both insane, but also amazing. That night, as Arham slept between them, Ariba whispered to Sohail, Do you think peace lasts? Sohail nodded slowly. Only if we keep choosing it. Every day, and we will. Ariba stared at her son's peaceful face. She remembered the first time she saw him at the pump, how everything changed, how a slap turned into a story of survival, strength, and redemption. They had been broken people once. But now, they were a family. The world would still be cruel sometimes, but now they had each other, and for the first time ever forever didn't seem scary. The morning sun bathed the village in a soft golden light. Ariba stood by the window sipping tea as Arham played with pebbles outside. For the first time in months, everything felt normal, peaceful, calm. The danger of Zubair was over. The trial was finished. Sohail's book was complete. Sana was working daily at the clinic and had even started smiling again. But inside Ariba's heart, something stirred. A small voice asking, what now? For so long, they had lived in survival mode. Now that the threats were gone, silence felt unfamiliar. It was beautiful but heavy. That day, Abbas arrived in the village with two guests. One was a woman named Na, a reporter working on a special documentary. The other was a social worker named Dr. Iman. Abbas introduced them gently. They want to talk to you, he said to Ariba and Sohail, about sharing your story. On national television, Sohail's eyes narrowed. Why? Abbas explained. We think your story could help others, women stuck in abusive situations, men wrongly judged, families broken by fear. Ariba listened quietly. She looked at Sohail, then at Arham, who had just drawn a smiling sun in the dirt. What if it puts us in danger again? She asked. Dr. Iman said softly. We will protect your identity, but only if you want to share. You are not required. Ariba nodded slowly. Let me think. That night, she and Sohail sat by the fire again. This place had become their thinking space. She turned to him. What if we do this? Not for fame, not for attention, but because somewhere, right now, there is a woman like I was. Powerless, afraid, invisible. Sohail thought for a long time, then he said, if we can save even one life, maybe it's worth it. The next morning they agreed to the interview. Filming began quietly. Ariba wore a scarf that shadowed her face. Sohail spoke from behind the camera. They told the full story, every wound, every turn, every time they thought it would all fall apart. When they finished, the room was silent. Even the camera crew had tears in their eyes. A week later, the interview aired. At first, there was no response. But then, letters began to arrive. Messages, emails, women from all over the country wrote in. I saw myself in her. I thought I was alone. I'm leaving my abuser today. Men wrote too. I was wrongly judged. I stopped helping people, but not anymore. Even teenagers wrote. Your story gave me courage to speak, to heal, to forgive. The village school invited Ariba and Sohail to speak. The mayor called them brave. Even the prime minister's office sent a thank you note. But not everyone was happy. One day a man from a nearby town appeared. His name was Qasim. He claimed to be Sanat's ex-fiancée. He said she had ruined his life by walking away. He threatened to expose her fake stories, even hurt her if needed. Abbas met him and warned him to stay away. But Sana was shaken. That night, she sat with Ariba and cried. Why does my past always find me? I just want to start over. Ariba hugged her. You already have. Qasim's voice is noise, not truth. Sana wiped her tears. What if I never find peace? Ariba smiled softly. Peace isn't a destination. It's something you build, like a home, bit by bit. The next day, Qasim tried to cause drama at the clinic. But before he could say much, the villagers stood up for Sana. One woman said, we know who she is now, and we are proud. He left, humiliated. Sana came home in disbelief. They defended me, she whispered me. Ariba laughed. Welcome to your new life. Arham brought Sana flowers that evening. He had picked them himself. For being brave, he said. Sana cried again. But this time, it was from healing. Meanwhile, Sohail got an offer from a publishing house. They wanted to turn his book into a novel. It could be sold nationwide. The advance was enough to support them for a year, but Sohail hesitated. Do I want the world to read about our pain? Ariba placed a hand on his. Pain that teaches becomes power. Say yes. So he did. The book was printed, and it flew off shelves. People quoted it, schools discussed it, counselors used it in sessions. Ariba's favorite part was the dedication for Arham, for every child who teaches us how to be human again. Then came the awards. One night, they were invited to a ceremony. Ariba wore a simple white dress, Sohail wore a plain suit. Arham wore his favorite bow tie. The host read their story aloud to the audience. When he finished, the entire hall stood and clapped. The moment felt unreal. Ariba whispered to Sohail, "I never thought a slap would lead here." Sohail chuckled, "Best mistake of your life." Later that night, back at home, Arham asked, "Will people always love us now?" Ariba kissed his forehead. "Not everyone, but that's okay. We know who we are, and that's enough." Sohail looked out the window. "Do you ever wonder what our life would have been like if that day never happened?" Ariba nodded. "Maybe quieter, maybe safer, but maybe less honest." Sohail turned to her. "I wouldn't change a thing." Ariba thought of her past. Of fear, silence, struggle. Then she looked around at the warm lights, the soft voices, the love. "I wouldn't either." In the distance, a storm rolled over the hills, but inside, their world was calm. They had turned wounds into wisdom, pain into purpose. And though challenges might come again, they now had something stronger than safety. They had each other. Ariba sat quietly in the kitchen, her hands wrapped around a warm cup of chai. The morning was cold, but the house felt alive. Arham had left early for school, full of energy, as always. Sohail was in the yard, planting new roses with Sana. Village had bloomed just like their lives. But something strange had been happening lately. It started small, a shadow near the gate at night, a knock on the door where no one stood. Then yesterday, Ariba found an envelope tucked under their front mat. Inside it was a single photo, an old one of her, taken long before she ever met Sohail. It was from the days she never spoke about. No name, no message, just the photo. She showed it to Sohala. His face turned serious. "Where did this come from?" "I don't know," she said. "Do you think it means something?" Sohail didn't answer. He went straight to Abbas. Abbas took the photo and stared at it for a long time. I know who took this." "Who?" Ariba asked. Abbas hesitated. "There was one man, a photographer. He worked for those who used to control your past. He disappeared when the group fell apart, but maybe he's back." Sohail's voice sharpened. "Why?" Abbas looked at both of them. "To remind her, or maybe to punish her. Either way, we need to be careful." Days passed. Ariba tried to keep her mind. Bizisha helped Sana set up a small health camp for women. Arham practiced for his school play. Sohail worked on the second part of his book. But every time Ariba walked outside, she felt eyes on her. She kept the curtains closed now. She slept, with the lights on. Then it got worse. Sana found a package at the clinic. Inside was a broken necklace Erebus, one she had lost years ago in the city. Her hands trembled as she held it. This man knew everything. He was close. Abbas brought extra guards. Cameras were installed, but no one saw anything. "He's clever," Abbas said, "but we will find him." A week later, Abbas knocked on their door in the middle of the night. "We caught him." Ariba and Sohail rushed to the police station. The man sat in the corner of the room, thin, quiet eyes, cold as stone. His name was Jamil. "I don't want to hurt her," he said. "I want her to remember." "Remember what?" Sohail shouted. "The pain, the fear." Jamil looked up. "The truth." Ariba stepped forward. "What truth?" He stared at her. "That you were once like us. That no matter how clean you look now, we know who you were." Ariba felt her knees weaken. Abbas stepped in. "She's not the same." "None of us are," Jamil laughed. "People don't change. They just hide better." Ariba walked out of the room, her heart pounding. In the hallway, Sohail caught her. "Don't listen to him." But his words had left a crack. Was Jamil right? Could her past ever truly stay buried? That night, she sat by the fire again. Sohail sat beside her. He didn't speak. He just waited. Finally, she said, "What if people saw the full truth? Not just the clean version. Everything. Would they still respect me?" Sohail turned to her. "I would. Arham would. Sana would. And the people who matter, they'd see your courage, not your mistakes." Abuz joined them the next day. He had news. Jamil would go to court, but the hearing would be public. Reporters would come. The media might dig deep. Ariba would be mentioned, maybe judged, maybe questioned. "Are you ready?" Abbas asked. Ariba didn't answer immediately. Then she nodded. "Let them ask. I won't hide." When the court day came, the hall was packed. Journalists, cameras, curious faces. Ariba sat beside Sohail, her hands calm. Jamil was brought in. He didn't look at her. The trial began. He was charged with stalking, threatening behavior, and criminal intimidation. His lawyer tried to twist the story. They said Ariba was seeking attention, that her past made her untrustworthy, that the photo and necklace were harmless, just old memories. The judge asked Ariba to speak. She stood up slowly. The room went silent. "My name is Ariba," she said. "Years ago I lived in darkness. I was used, hurt, broken, but I survived. And I changed. Jamil wants me to feel shame, but I feel strength because I left that life. I chose better. And I help others do the same." The judge looked at her closely. "Thank you." The verdict came 2 hours later. Guilty Jamil was sentenced to 6 years. Outside the court, journalists surrounded Ariba. One asked, "Do you regret your past?" She replied, "I regret nothing that led me here." Another asked, "What message do you want to give women watching this?" She smiled. "You are not your worst moment. You are your next choice." The video of her interview went viral. Again, letters poured in. But this time, they were different. Not just about survival, but about leadership. Ariba was invited to speak at women's conferences. She was offered a spot on a social reform board. Sohail was invited to teach creative writing in nearby colleges. Sana started free workshops for teen girls. Even Arham was asked to give a speech in his school about courage. Life was growing, stretching, healing. One day, while watching Arham play under the same tree where he once cried as a baby, Ariba turned to Sohail and asked, "Do you think we were chosen for this?" Sohail shook his head. "No, I think we chose ourselves. Every single time." That night, they lit a small lantern and placed it outside the house. For the past, for those still in pain, and for the future, Sana joined them. They sat together in silence, watching the light glow. In that moment, Ariba didn't feel fear anymore, not even for a second. She had looked her past in the eye, and she had not flinched. Tomorrow would bring more questions, more challenges. But now she had answers, and she had peace. Ariba stood at the balcony, watching the village lights flicker gently under the night sky. The soft hum of the wind wrapped around her like a quiet song. Everything felt still, but not empty. It was the stillness of peace, of something complete. Months had passed since the court case. Jamil was gone. Their names were cleared. Their story had inspired thousands of... But now a new question was growing in Ariba's heart. What next? She had rebuilt her life from the ground up. Sohail had walked beside her through every storm. Sana had found her voice. Arham was growing into a bright, kind boy. But deep inside, Ariba knew her work wasn't done. One evening, as they all sat around the dinner table, Sana looked up from her plate and said, "What if we opened something permanent? A center, a place for women like us?" Sohail raised his eyebrows. "Like a shelter." Ariba leaned forward. "No more than a shelter, a home, a school, a clinic, a safe space. Somewhere women can come without shame." Sana nodded. "Somewhere they're believed the first time." The room went quiet. The idea hung in the air like something sacred. They began planning that very night. They called it Roshangar, the House of Light, a place where pain could be spoken aloud and still be met with love. Abbas helped with the legal work. Local women volunteered. A retired teacher offered to hold evening classes. A young nurse joined Sana's team. Even the children helped painting signs, arranging books. Sohail wrote letters to donors. His name now carried weight. Within 6 months, the doors of Roshangar opened. On the first day, only one woman came. Her name was Minaz. She was scared, silent. She had 2 children with her, and bruises on her arms. Ariba welcomed her personally. No questions, no judgment, just tea and warmth. By the end of the week, 6 women had arrived. Then 12, then more. Some stayed for a few days, some for months, but each one left stronger, more whole. Ariba would sit with them every evening, telling her story again and again. Not for sympathy, but for strength. She showed them they weren't alone. One night, Arham asked her, "Mama, does it make you sad to remember all those bad days?" She smiled and ran her fingers through his hair. "Sometimes," she said, "but more than sad, it makes me proud." "Why?" he asked. "Because we turned those days into something good." Arham looked thoughtful. Then he said, "I think you're like a candle, Mama. Even when you get smaller, you give light." Ariba's eyes filled with tears. In that one sentence, her whole life made sense. But life, as always, doesn't stay simple for long. One morning, while reviewing documents, Sohail received an urgent call. His mother was sick, very sick. She lived far away in the same city where their pain had begun. He hadn't seen her in years. Ariba looked at him. "You should go." Sohail shook his head. "I don't want to bring you near that place again." "I'll go alone." Ariba took his hand. "We don't run anymore. We walk through." Together they packed their bags. Abbas arranged protection. Sana stayed to manage the center. When they reached the city, everything looked smaller, less scary. Ariba felt nervous, but she held Sohail's hand tightly. His mother lay in a small hospital bed. Her face was thin, eyes dim. She smiled weakly when Sohail entered. "You came?" she whispered. "I wasn't sure you would." He sat beside her and held her hand. "You're still my mother." Ariba stayed outside to give them space. When Sohail returned, he looked tired but peaceful. "I forgave her," he said, "not because she changed, but because I did." The next few days passed quietly. One evening, Ariba stepped out to buy food. On her way back, someone followed her. At first she thought it was her imagination, but the footsteps matched hers. Her heart pounded. She entered a small shop and waited. A man stood outside, pretending to look at fruit. Her breath caught. She recognized him, not by name, but by the look. One of the men from her darkest time. He hadn't seen her yet, but he was waiting, watching. She knew. She called Abbas. Within minutes his team arrived and quietly arrested the man. When Sohail heard what happened, he rushed to her. Are you okay? She nodded, but inside, she was shaking. Why can't it just end? She whispered. Sohail pulled her close. Maybe because you're not finished yet. You're still rising. The past returns when it feels threatened, because you're becoming too powerful. Ariba looked into his eyes. I don't feel powerful, he smiled. That's how I know you are. They returned to the village a week later. Roshangar was blooming. Sana had handled everything beautifully. New volunteers had joined. One woman who had healed even became a staff member, but something else happened too. That night, while tucking Arham into bed, he asked, Mama, can I ask you something strange? Ariba smiled. You can ask me anything when I grow up. Can I build Roshangar in other cities? For more people? Her heart swelled. Yes, my love. You can build 10 or 100. He nodded seriously. Okay then, I'll start planning tomorrow. She kissed his forehead. You are the best part of my story. 1 week later, a big TV network called Bay wanted to make a film about Ariba's life, a feature movie. It would be fictional, but based on her journey. Sohail hesitated. That's a lot of exposure. Are we ready? Ariba looked at the old scarf hanging on the wall, the one she wore in the first interview. We were ready the moment I chose not to hide. Tell them yes, the film was made. It became a national sensation. In one scene, the actress playing Ariba slapped a man at a gas pump. The audience gasped, then laughed, then cried. At the end of the film, real photos of Ariba, Sohail, Arham, and Sana played on the screen. People stood and clapped in every theater. Ariba didn't watch the film in public. She watched it once, alone, in her home, with Arham on one side and Sohail on the other. When it ended, she wiped her tears. I hope the woman I used to be is proud of the woman I became. Sohail said, she would be, because she's the reason you made it here. And now, we move forward. Ariba smiled. Let's keep building. Tomorrow, next year, always. More light, more hope. Arham looked up. And more stories, Mama. Ariba laughed. Yes, always more stories. Because every ending is just the beginning of someone else's courage.